welcome to the Warrior Story podcast, where we deep dive into the unique health journeys of everyday people like you and me. Health is often taken for granted, but it is not the default setting for a lot of us. So that's why we are here to inspire people to keep fighting, keep searching for answers, and we want people to know that they are not alone. If any of that resonated with you, be sure to like, subscribe, follow, do all the things, depending on what platform you're viewing or listening to this on. That way you'll always know whenever we have a new episode out, because we have some pretty phenomenal people on this show, and you should probably listen to all of them, if I'm being honest. Today, I'm so pumped about our guest. I'm pumped about all our guests, but Diana is someone who I'm really excited to spread her story. Every conversation that I have had with this person in the process of connecting with them and getting them on the show has been a game changer. Every time I leave these conversations, I am energized, I am optimistic, I am motivated. I can't wait for you guys to meet this person and hear their story. It's going to be phenomenal. So today we have with us Diana Dibble. She is the CEO of Tripod Coaching and Consulting. I had to write it all down because she's a powerhouse. She's got a lot going on. She's the CEO of Tripod Coaching and Consulting, where she supports businesses by helping them prepare for what if moments. And I don't think there could be a more appropriate phrase for our conversation today. She is also the president and co-founder of an award-winning government contracting firm called Design to Delivery. She regularly speaks on business and business operations topics. She volunteers for local and national nonprofits. She's an active member in several business associations, and she's a top 3 finalist for the 2022 NAMO Women Business Owner of the Year Award. Let me take a breath. Clearly, Diana is a force to be reckoned with. And she had her own what if moment in 2021 when one of her doctors discovered 2 brain tumors. After brain surgery and radiation, my gosh, she's used her story as a brain tumor survivor to spread awareness, to fundraise, and to end the stigma facing entrepreneurs with chronic illnesses. This is a woman after my own heart. Everybody, please welcome Diana Dibble. Thank you so much for joining us, Diana.
Hi, happy Friday or
Happy
whatever day of the
Friday.
week it is.
It's Friday for you and me, so I think it deserves its own celebration.
There you go. There you go. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, we're here.
We're here. And I think that's cause for celebration. I feel like a lot of people, like, I don't know, I'm going to phrase this poorly. I'm always pumped about my guests. I feel like I've just been very blessed to have such phenomenal people on this show, to have such beautiful conversations. And I really, really mean it. Every time we've connected, I've just been jazzed. Like, I've just been so energized. I've been like, you know what? She's right. Like, this, I can do something with this. This is phenomenal. I can keep going. I can keep creating and keep building. And I'm just obsessed with your energy and your spirit. And I'm obsessed. So can you tell us a little bit more about what it is you do and kind of how your story started?
So, it's so funny. I feel like that sometimes life prepares you in advance for something you don't even know that's coming, because my story as a business owner and entrepreneur actually is not the person who was like, and I want to own a business and I want to do this and on and on. I was the person who was like, no, no, thank you. I don't want that. That's a lot of responsibility. I mean, if you have employees, you're responsible for their lives. Oh, no, 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 but thank you. And that was 1994 when the CFO for the company I was working for says to me, "Hey, I'm going to give you this project and I'm going to pay you as a 1099 and it's going to be your first thing as a business owner." And I literally was like, "I'll take the money, but the rest of it is a nope. It's a nope. No, thank you. How do I politely say this? But nope, 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 and nope." What I didn't know that was coming was 2 years later, I was working for a company and I got laid off on a Friday. And I'm like, okay. I was an executive director and I, ended up bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars a couple months later after I was gone. But Friday, I went away with my mom and my sister, and we went to a resort, and I got to sit in sea salt tubs and have
Mm.
massages and on,
Yes,
while
please.
I'm thinking, yeah, it was awesome, except for the fact that the whole time I'm like, how am I going to pay my mortgage?
Big
How am I going to
life-changing
pay
event.
my, yeah, I mean, huge. So I called my old boss Monday and I said, "Look, you left and the rest of us got, fired. So I need a job." And he said, "I cannot hire you as an employee, but I can hire you as a consultant."
Mm.
So that Monday, my first business was born. What I didn't know is that that put me on the path where I would ultimately end up working for a former client. And that's where I met my business partner, Molly Gimmel. And in September 10th, 2001, we founded Design to Delivery Inc. And over the years, we been through all sorts of stuff. We had to pivot thanks to the recession and all sorts of other stuff. But what we did at the beginning was we switched roles because I had been the sales and marketing and proposal stuff, and she'd been the contracts and pricing and proposals. And she's like, "I don't want to do that." And I was like, "Great, because I don't want to do this." So we switched roles, and I took over all the business operations kind of stuff. Again, laying the groundwork for something I didn't know was coming. So I spent 20 years building the foundation of design to delivery.
Wow.
What I didn't know that was going to happen was in 2017 we hired this woman as a business operations manager, and then I spent the next several years teaching her everything she wanted to learn about what I knew. I mean, she was like, "Whatever you want to teach me." I said, "Great." So I basically was grooming somebody who now is the vice president of the company. She pretty much knew everything I needed to do. And then we fast forward to November 2nd, 2021, the day after I had an MRI, and I'm on this big conference call, and I was like, "Oh, hold on a second, I need to take this. It's my doctor." So I put them on mute, and he's like, "Hi. So we got the results." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "You have a brain tumor." And I was like, "Huh. Well, I didn't see that coming."
I
But I
laughed,
was
but I
kind of
like,
like,
what other response can you have, really?
I mean, literally, they say when you hear hoof beats, you should think horses, not zebras. Well, I
Mm.
had a zebra.
Mhm.
I had a zebra. So I get off the phone. I mean, I literally, when he said that, I clicked back into the call with everybody. I was like, "Hey, I need to call y'all back."
Yeah.
So I get off the call, and my boyfriend comes in. He's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Well, I have a brain tumor." And he's like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "No, no, it's okay." And I started to cry. And he's like, "No, seriously, it's okay." And I was like, "No, you don't understand. I have a hair appointment for Thursday, and I don't know if I should go because it's really expensive and I don't want to spend the
Ah,
money if they're going to shave my head." So
that
that's what I was concerned about.
that feels so
I
real,
mean, like,
though. That
seriously.
concern is legitimate.
Well, I also, when you have medical bills coming, you
Yeah.
you don't want to waste any money on
No
anything.
joke.
So, he works with a neurosurgeon, and he said, "We're going to send everything over and you should expect a call." Now, I'm an operations person. I don't wait for phone calls. Called over there and they were like, "No, we can get you in about 3 weeks." So I called back to the neuro ophthalmologist office, and he's like, "No, we sent it over there." And so the woman walked next door because they're next door to each other. And she's like, "I took care of it." They called me a few minutes later. "Can you come in today?"
Yes, I can.
So we went over and we had a meeting with him. And I am a person who most people watch, sitcoms and regular movies and stuff. I watch science fiction
Mhm.
and, martial arts movies. But in my spare time, I watch medical shows. And my favorite shows, and I don't mean Grey's Anatomy. I mean like reconstructive surgery and heart transplants and on, because I wanted to be a doctor at one point. So this is what I find fun. Go in, talk to the doctor. And so I'm asking all these questions. And he's like, "Are you in the medical field?" And I was like, "No, I own a government contracting firm." He's like, "How do you know so much?" I said, "Well, my dad's a doctor and my grandfather was a doctor and I was supposed to be a doctor. And matter of fact, my boyfriend's father was my biology teacher in junior high and high school. I mean, we've known each other since I was in first grade.
Small world.
So it turns out my doctor's father was a doctor. And, so we chit chat and I said, "Oh, by the way, I have a question because we're talking about this one tumor and I happened to read the MRI report and it says I have two." And he's
Mm.
like, "I only looked at the thing on the one. Let's go to my office." So we go and look. He said, "Well, you sure do. You have two." And I'm like, "Oh,
good,
okay."
good thing
So,
somebody's reading the charts.
well, you know what? I mean, the thing is the one that we were talking about is the one that was the most serious and the
Mhm.
most immediate. So, I'm like, "Okay, like, what's the plan?" He's, "I don't think there's any rush. Okay, maybe January, maybe February. We'll see." And I was like, "Okay." He said, "Do you have any questions?" I was like,
Do I?
"Oh, wait till you get a load of me." I mean, I had a notebook with 4 pages of questions. I was like, "Well, let's start with the basic questions. What about my hair?" We're back to the hair question. And he's like, "No, we're just, we'll just do a thin thing." And I was like, "Okay, I can handle that." Now, next important question. Can I ski this year? Now, this man looks at me, he said, "You do know I'm opening your head, right?" And I was like, "I know, but
Valid
the other
question.
doctor, I asked him and he said that, maybe late season." He goes, "No, that's not what we're doing here." I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Okay, no problem. What else do you have? How do you do?" And I asked him, I said, "How are you going to do the surgery?" Like, I literally had gone to the National Library of Medicine and looked up case studies.
Mhm.
And I was like, "So, how are you going to do it?" He explained it. And I said, "Why do you want to do it that way instead of doing this procedure?" He explained that. And he said, "People do it. I don't think it's the best way to do it. You're happy to get another opinion." And I was like, "No, dude, I did my homework on you. You're the guy. You're the guy." I have friends who had worked with him. I actually found out that one of my cousins was one of the surgical nurses when he was practicing at this one hospital. My best friend sends all of her patients to him. Another friend of mine has done work with him. So I was like, "You're the person." And I looked up you on YouTube. I looked you up on Google. I see that you were part of the people who came up with the grading for these types of tumors
Oh,
in
wow.
1999. And he's like, "Wow, you really did do your homework." And I'm like,
It's
"Uh-huh."
a socially acceptable amount of internet stalking.
"Well, if you're gonna cut my head open, I
Yeah,
am going to stalk
that's
you on
valid
the internet to make
for
sure
sure.
that you are who you say you are." And he's amazing. He answered all of my questions and everything, and he said, "Okay, well, we'll look at January, February. Anything else?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I have this new symptom that happened since I got last seen by the other doctor. I'm a little concerned." He's like, "Well, let me take a look at you." We go back into the exam room. He takes one look at me. He says, "We're doing this now."
Oh,
And I went,
oh
"Okay,
gosh.
all right." So that was November 8th, and I had surgery December 1st.
Wow. My gosh.
Yeah. And you want to talk about how the universe aligned? If my surgery had not been scheduled then, it was a week later when the hospital went on yellow for COVID, and then a week later went red.
Oh my
So elective
gosh.
surgeries were canceled.
It
So if
happened
we
the
had
way it was supposed
waited,
to.
it sure did. And if we had waited, they thought I was going to lose the sight in my right eye from the surgery. It just kind of was a given. Somehow I missed that part. Martin, he got it, but I somehow missed that part. But I came out of surgery with my eyesight fully intact. And actually, the vision I had lost, I was like, "Hey, I can see. This is awesome." So if we had waited, I definitely would have been blind in that eye.
Oh my
And then it
gosh.
turns out in January, that little sucker, they said, "Hey, this has been growing for 10 years." So I'm thinking, well, then it's going to take another 10 years to get this size. But nope, it came back. And I have a really rare type of brain tumor. It's a meningioma, but it's an optic nerve sheath.
Mm.
So it's a rare tumor in a rare tumor type. So before it was completely compressing my optic nerve, which is why I was losing my sight. He got off what he could, and then couldn't. After you leave. can't take stuff around the carotid artery because if you nick it,
Too
you'll
dangerous.
die. Well, I mean, pretty much you'll probably die. So, whatever, what's past dangerous? What's that next level? Because that's what this is. That's next
We
level.
don't wanna go there.
No, no. I told him after he told me that. I said, I totally appreciate that. Thank you
Yeah.
so very
Good
much.
call, good call.
But in January I started feeling like my sight was going again, and
Mm.
in March found out it had started growing in the optic nerve, and
Oh,
then it was also displacing my pituitary gland.
all the fun
So at
stuff.
this all the fun stuff. So he told me at that, told me before surgery, you may have to have radiation, but it's not an immediate, we'll see. So the radiation oncologist is like, we'll check back in July. In March, the neurosurgeon said, "You're gonna have to have radiation." I was like, "Okay, cool. When?" He goes, "Now." And I was like, "Wow, now seems to be the word of the day with me with this
Now the
stuff."
present is the best moment for anything.
Uh, yeah, but I was hoping to have a little bit more time. But basically, that was the middle of March. Saw the radiation oncologist, and then in April, I had 5.5 weeks of daily radiation
Oh,
treatments.
man.
So, and I was lucky. Thank you to my health insurance because whole brain radiation has a lot of side effects. It can
Mm.
kill healthy tissue and on and on and on. So it's hard to do it for brain, but I was able to get the proton beam radiation, which is
Oh.
really targeted. They, when you go, you have to do CAT scans and everything, and they fit you in a mask. It's like soft plastic, and then they bolt you to the table, and it becomes hard, and then they write on it like where the radiation has to go. So, I went to Johns Hopkins. They have a really, really, really good program or department that does proton beam radiation. Couldn't have been with nicer bunch of people. Really, truly. I literally, when I get over there, when I go back for appointments and stuff, because I see a reconstructive plastic surgeon. So whenever I'm over there, I make sure to pop into the suite. And it's really funny because Johns Hopkins is actually doing a patient story on me. So they followed me around like I was, a celebrity. It was really kind of funny. And when we went over there, I saw two of the ladies. They were in one of the other radiation suites. And all you hear are squeals as I go running over, and they all get up, and it's all hugs. And the guys are like, "What? What?" And I was like, "You don't these are my girls. These are my girls." So, so now I had my first 6 month MRI, and it looks like it's, there's no growth. It didn't shrink. Kinda like me trying to diet, I'm trying, but there's no shrink,
Story of my life.
hey. Although I have lost weight and people are like, "Oh my god, you look great. You've lost so much weight. What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't recommend this diet."
Yeah,
I'm just
not ideal.
no, no, I would say just maybe cut back on the sweets, exercise a
There you
little
go.
more, but the brain surgery diet is really not one you wanna sign up for.
No.
But I go next week for the next round of MRIs to see what's going on. But you wanna hear something really cool? You talk
Obviously.
about how everything is kind of like comes together. About 10 years ago, I started seeing an endocrinologist because I have, like I don't have enough going on. I have a nodule on my thyroid. So I have all the symptoms of somebody with hyperthyroidism, but my labs didn't match it. And he's like, "Don't worry, we will figure it out." 10 years later, this tumor comes popping out from
On
under
your
my
pituitary
pituitary gland.
gland.
So I asked him, I said, "Do you think this has been hanging out the whole time and that's why I've been having problems?" And he's like, "Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely, I do." So having the radiation cleared up all of those symptoms.
My
All of my
gosh.
labs are normal. They were normal before, but everything else, my high blood sugar, normal, my blood pressure, normal. I mean, literally, but this thing had been causing problems that we didn't even know about its existence. So it's really, really interesting how you look at how my business was getting ready for me to go out. I literally was out for 6.5 months.
Mm.
And then to find out that this was the cause of something else. that got cleared up. Now, I'm blind on the right side. I lost my peripheral vision. It's not gonna come back. I'm okay with that. And I told told my boyfriend, I said, because I asked, I'm like, "Am I allowed to go skiing?" They're like, "Well, let's get a little further along." And then right around Thanksgiving, I sent a happy Thanksgiving to my neurosurgeon. I was like, "Oh, by the way, that skiing thing." He's like, "Yes, you can ski. Wear a helmet." I was like, "Dude, I
Yes.
always wear a helmet." Seriously. I mean, even before this, I wore a helmet. But my neuro-ophthalmologist, like, "Just be careful you have depth perception and still balance." Because I told him I wore a pair of heels out, and he's like, "I don't know if that's a good idea." I was like, "Dude, I have a room that I converted into a shoe closet,
This is a
and all my
lifestyle.
heels are sitting there looking at me going, 'We miss you.'" And I'm like, "I miss you too." But, it's just funny how just life all, comes together, and then you look backwards and you're like, the last I don't know. I'm not gonna do the math going back to '94. That's almost, what, 30 years, I
I don't
guess,
wanna do it, it'll
almost,
make me unhappy.
right? I get that. But, really, like, the last 30 years laid the groundwork, and then over the subsequent 30 years or 28 years or whatever, was building up everything in my life to be ready to handle this. And the one thing that I always say is that, you try to find the good. Try to find the good.
Absolutely.
But after I came out of surgery, because I kept thinking, all I had to do for Molly was a page that had dates of things that had to be submitted, things that I usually was responsible for, how to do ACHs and wires for the bank, because everything else had been documented. I mean, literally, it was
Mm,
like this, and then Diane had the other stuff. So I knew that the stuff I'm responsible for is going to happen. But I literally, was like out of surgery and I was like, something good has to come from this because most people are not prepared for it from a personal level, but
absolutely.
really business owners. I mean, I'm lucky I had a business partner, and I even talked to a company who I'm talking to about becoming a client. And she said, "Well, what would I do? I don't have a Molly." And I was like, "There are things we can do." Made a
Systems,
suggestion about
baby.
things that could be done. And then I called a friend of mine who's attorney. I was like, "I just told somebody this. That can be done, right?" And she goes, "Oh, absolutely." And I'm like,
Whew.
because it made sense to me that it could be done. But, it's like it's a little bit different than even getting a breast cancer or colon cancer or whatever diagnosis, because there's so much more information that's available to people. There's so many more success stories. The whole thing about hope, the technology and the medical knowledge in terms of healing people is so much farther, but people don't talk about brain cancer and brain tumors. It's because I think it's one of the scariest things, you know? It's like the rest of your body, you're like, "Well, I can do without my breast. I can do without my, part of my colon. I can do it." But,
You
your
really
brain,
want the whole brain.
you really kinda do. The thing that's so amazing is that the brain, and they've been doing studies on this, that when something happens in a brain, that the brain almost like knows how to reroute itself.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of cool the things that they're finding out, the type of um techniques and technologies that they're using, really good robotics and microscopic. It's really something. And then you have this show called Lennox Hill, and I had watched it on Netflix before all this happened, and I was just all into it because it's, everything
It's
I
the good
love, it's
stuff,
all
yeah.
medical. But they have these, neurosurgeons who started the program at the hospital, and so you follow these patients, and, some of the outcomes are good, and, at the end, 2 of the patients we followed through the story, didn't they passed. Valiant fights and things, but, some of these brain cancers are just nasty. But they were showing how some of the things that they're doing with the clinical trials is really changing it so people have longer time or even being cured. So, um, been stalking them on Instagram, and the questions all the time from people are like, "When's the show coming back? When's the next season?" They just announced it, March 29th,
Excellent.
and it's called, I think it's called Emergency NYC, and people are all over this. And it's really good because, it's something that somebody who has a brain tumor diagnosis could say, "Okay, at least we got included in the conversation," because you don't hear about it for fundraising. If you ask most people, "When is Brain Tumor Awareness Month?" and they're gonna be like, "Oh, is that a thing?"
Yes, it's a thing.
It's a thing. And believe it or not, I kept everything with my diagnosis and treatment and everything very, very quiet. And people are like, "You're always all over social media." And a lot of the stuff I do is things that I don't mind people knowing, but this I didn't want to talk about. Not because I was scared, not because of whatever, but it was very private to me.
Mm,
And I didn't want to have to spend my energy, one, explaining this thing over and over and over
yes,
again.
absolutely.
Um, and then there was the, "Oh, well, it's benign, so you're okay.
Oh
You
gosh.
had surgery."
You're
And I'm
good now.
like, "Yeah, everything's perfect." And I was like, "Yeah, except for the fact I still have two brain tumors. And benign doesn't mean it won't kill me." That's the problem with using that term. So a lot of us with brain tumors will say non-cancerous
Mm,
instead of benign, because benign has been co-opted outside of the medical community. It's like, "Oh, so and so, the way they're acting and treatment, oh, don't worry, what they're doing is benign. Don't worry about it." So it's kind of been co-opted outside of the medical field. To me, no big deal. And that's really not, originally it was supposed to mean non-cancerous. So a lot of people will say non-cancerous. And then you have some in the medical field who don't consider meningiomas brain tumors because it's on the meninges, which is on the outside of the brain. And so some of them are like, "Well, you don't really have a brain tumor. You have a tumor of the meninges." And it's like,
does it really
which
matter? It's
is
still kind of a big
in your
deal.
brain.
So,
Yeah, and when you look at the pictures, which I have seen the pictures of my brain, so if somebody says to me, "Are you stupid? Do you even have a brain?" I can say,
mm.
"Yeah, I do. You want to see the pictures?
I've seen it.
I've seen it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful little brain." But
I bet it's not little.
so there's that. But I was lucky. I was very lucky. One, I have a background, so I know where to go to look for information. I know the questions to ask. I know how to figure out if it was the right doctor or not. And a lot of people don't have that. So, um, right after, because I didn't know what was going to happen, although I did go to YouTube and I did watch the surgery.
You
Fascinating.
do a little bit
Um,
of doom scrolling just because you kind of have to.
I wanted to know what I was going to be in for.
Hmm.
So I wanted to watch the surgery. They didn't have the one with both procedures that I had to have. So unfortunately, to find, I had to go look in two different places, and the only one that they had, the other one, was cadaver surgery. So
Oof.
my doctors think I am hardcore because I watched cadaver surgery. But again, I wanted to know what I was in for. Um, so I have a background that is well suited for this. And being an operations person, give me a problem, I'm going to find a solution. I'm going to figure out all the steps. One of the smartest things I did was I went out to Facebook and I found support groups
There we
for brain
go.
tumors,
Yes.
for meningiomas, for optic nerve sheath meningiomas, and then also radiation. And you come in, you're like, "I'm a newbie. I have no idea what's going on,"
Tell me all
on
the
and on.
things.
Tell me all the things. And you know what? That is the greatest source of information because you have people who've walked it before you who were also newbies. So, one of the most asked questions is, "What do I take to the hospital?"
That's such a good question. And I feel like people don't always remember to ask it. And then, like, the day comes and they're like, oh, oh crap. What what supplies do I need? I don't know what sort of journey I'm about to go
Yeah,
on.
exactly, exactly. And it's really, really, it's so amazing because you get all of these people who are like, okay, this is what you need. So by the time I, was getting ready to go in, because I didn't have a lot of time, one of the things that you wouldn't think about is things that button up instead of
Mhm.
having to go over your head.
Yep.
But you don't think about it. You're just kind of like, I don't know. And most of us wore, hospital gowns while we were in the hospital, but still you had to get dressed to go home, you know? Um, but people would be like, you're going to be cold, make sure to bring a blanket. It's going to be loud and hard to sleep. Make sure to bring earplugs. And here's a good one. And this is another thing you don't think of. You think, well, I'm going to have my phone. I'm going to need a phone charger. People are like, bring a really long cord.
Oh, that's such a good one. I wouldn't have thought of that.
I wouldn't have thought of
I would
it.
not have thought of
Or
that.
when you go home, you have to sleep elevated. So a lot of
Mm.
people said wedge pillows. So I bought wedge pillows. I tried to sleep on it and it just destroyed my back. So I bought a pregnancy pillow.
Ooh, those are the best. Oh, those are so
So what, it's a horseshoe. So what I did was I put a couple pillows behind it to elevate the back, and then I put pillows in the middle. The other thing it did is, how like with the infants and you put them on the bed and you put stuff around
good.
them
Mhm.
so they won't roll off. I was in the middle of this so I didn't have to worry about accidentally rolling off the bed.
Oh. Okay. Well, there you go.
So now I have something to be able to share when people say, "Oh, what kind of pillow?" And I'm like, "This is what I did." But just all sorts of little and it's like bring something to read, you're going to be bored. Well, my problem is that I had double vision and then my eye swelled because it like when I came out because they're like you will have a black eye and I came out and I was like, "Ha ha, I don't have one." And then over the next
Yep.
few hours watched it swell.
You're like, oh, never mind.
But
There it is.
the whole I'm scared, I'm going in, you have this huge community that you can ask questions of. And there's a couple of people who might say, "Oh, well, you really need to do this." And the moderators are really good about, please don't give medical
Yes.
advice.
Oh,
Don't
absolutely.
undermine what the doctor. So people are usually really good about, well, when I had this is what I talked about, this is what I asked. But there are times that we will jump in because, somebody's like, my doctor won't return my calls. I don't feel comfortable or whatever. And we're like, okay, number one, second opinion. Number two, with what you have, make sure you find a doctor that this is what they do all day, every day.
This episode of the Warrior Stories podcast is made possible by Haka Life Nutrition. Haka Life Nutrition believes in a whole body health approach, from a strong mindset, making smart food choices, encouraging daily exercise, and supporting your body with quality supplements. Haka Life Nutrition produces quality of life supplements that support your joint health, support your muscles, keep your heart healthy, and keep your brain active. Head to hakalife.com/warrior to learn more and get exclusive discounts. That's hakalife.com/warrior. All right, now let's get back to the good stuff.
Because there'll be people who'll be told something's inoperable, and it's like it's only inoperable because that doctor doesn't do that surgery. But you find somebody who does it all the time who's like, yeah, no big deal. Or people who are told, watch and wait, because there's a lot of watch. Like one of my tumors is on a watch and wait. It's just kind of hanging out, being a middle child, as I call it, because I'm a middle child. We don't like to cause problems.
Yeah.
We just, we're the
Same.
peacekeepers. I'm like, be a middle child and just hang out, okay? But there's some people who are like, this is what my MRI said. This is how big it is. They want to put me on watch and wait. I don't know how I feel. And people will say, you know what? If it gets bigger, you're going to have a problem. And then people are like, oh, I'm really old. I don't know if this is worthwhile. And then you'll have somebody who's like 10 years older going, get the surgery.
Yeah.
Life is not over. So, we have this it's, when you say a support group, we really are a support group and we get invested in each other even though we haven't met. And, you have situation. I happen to have a really supportive family unit and partner and business partner who's one of my best friends and like my sister. So I'm fortunate. Not everybody has that. And we've had people whose spouses right after surgery is like, well, you're not the person I married. So I'm going to be bouncing. And they're
Mhm.
like, my whole life is over. And we're like, okay, number one, tell them bye. Just
Yeah.
say bye.
That you don't need that in your life.
We're done. We're done here, thank you. And in one case, one woman was really upset, and this other woman says, "So where are you?" And she said, "Oh, I'm in such and such." She said, "I'm 20 minutes away. DM me your
Oh,
address. I'm on my way over."
oh, that's support. That that
That
is
is support.
that is support. That's what it is. Just
Yeah, so, but it's a lot of stories about hope, and you when you get on there, you just want to hear that somebody else went through it and they came out on the other end okay. And the what should I expect in terms of recovery, because I
mm.
was told I could go back to work in 3 weeks, and I was like, oh great, I took 5 weeks off, and ha ha ha, because I started having problems in January. So I talked to the doctor, and he's like, I really think you need to take off. And I was like, okay, how long? He said, until after radiation. And I was like, ooh, I don't know how they're going to feel about that,
Big what
but
if
you
moment.
know yeah, but I mean, I knew the business would be fine, and I'm the one who says I'm gonna be off and call in all day. So, it was probably good that I took the time, but, early on, it was really hard for me because I'm the one who's there, who's fixing stuff, not
Yep.
just for business, for whatever. I'm the fixer, and I had to ask for help.
Oh, that
I couldn't
that
I
makes my
couldn't
hackles
do stuff.
rise. I That's
Yeah, I'm not
hard.
supposed to. I'm the one you call for
Yep.
help. I'm not the one who asks for help. So it was a really good learning experience for me because I needed help, and it's, you want to hear a funny story? So
Yes.
hilarious. Okay, so you have brain surgery, and you think you're going to be in the hospital for like 10 days or whatever. I went in on Wednesday, Friday morning. They're like, okay, thanks. We'll see you. You're going home. Okay, bye. And, I'm
Okay.
like, whatever. I trust you all." And my partner was like, "Wait, what? Already? No, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Oh my God."
Aw.
Already. So, I got dressed, and I had bought this shirt that says brain surgery hair don't care, because my hair was crazy looking. And, we go home, and I literally almost immediately started having headaches. And headaches can be a cerebral spinal fluid leak, which
Mhm.
are very dangerous and even life threatening. So I'm just like, okay, let me keep an eye on this. So a week later, I called my neurosurgeon. I was like, my face is so swollen, and my head, I just literally want to rip it off my neck and throw it against the wall. And he's like, oh, okay. So he's like, you know what? I'm sending you to the emergency room, and I'm calling over so you don't have to wait, because he was really concerned. Well, this is a week after surgery, so now they're on code yellow, and
Mm.
just had brain surgery, cannot get
Yeah,
COVID.
no.
Yeah, no, and I'm still a fall risk. So I tried to get out of the car and looked so pitiful. The security guard ran in and got a wheelchair. So they wheel me in. Of course, I'm still being funny because that's what I do and that's how I deal with stuff. And they're like, "We're gonna have to do a CT scan and see what the heck's going on." And I'm surrounded by people who've been exposed to COVID, so I'm like with the blanket up
Yep.
to my nose, and I have like double masked and on and on. And so finally, they're like, "Okay, we're gonna take you back." The problem is when you've had brain surgery and you lay flat,
Ooh, yeah.
the whole world spins, and I was just like, "This is terrible." And then it's boom, boom, boom,
Oh.
boom, boom. So, then I'm like, I have to pee. So the lady's like, and I still have the band on from the hospital, fall risk. So she wheels me over, and she's like, okay, I'm standing right here. Make sure to hold on to everything, take it slow, and on and on. And I was like, oh my God, is this where my life is? Like, holy crap, this is terrible. So, make it out fine, get in. So they take me back downstairs and they're like, well, you don't have a cerebral spinal fluid leak, but there's clearly something
Thankfully.
that's leaking here because we can see your hair's wet. But we'll keep an eye on that. But we have to deal with the headaches because they're like, scale 1 to 10, what's the pain? I was like, 43? And I'm a person with a high level of pain tolerance. So
So
this
you
was,
were
I mean,
being
this was
serious.
bad. I was as a, just as when your mom tells you not to do something and then gives you a look, that's
Mm.
how serious I was. So they gave me this medication that is part barbiturates and part caffeine and
Oh,
something else. I
wow.
forget the other part. I don't drink caffeine. And
Right.
obviously, I don't take barbiturates. They gave me this thing. Almost immediately, I had relief, and I was like, "This is some good stuff here.
This is the stuff.
This is good." So, they wheel me out to the car. Martin takes me home, and he's like, "You're getting in the bed, and you're going to take a nap." So, of course, I passed out. He comes to bed and goes to sleep, wakes up in the middle of the night, and I'm gone.
Oh,
Not
well,
dead,
yeah,
but not
but
not in
not
bed.
there.
I'm like, I did not die that day, thank God. So he figured maybe I went to the bathroom because we put a Himalayan salt crystal lamp in there so I
Mm.
could have light, but it wouldn't be too bright. Looks in the back, I'm not there. He's, where is she? Where is she? Goes out in the living room, and I had crawled into the recliner and fallen asleep. I don't remember going there. I don't know. Did I go to watch TV? I have no idea, but he's had a heart attack because and I'm a
Couldn't
fall
find
guy, so
you.
apparently I did it in the dark.
Ooh.
So finally, he's like, okay, we're gonna get you back in the bed. He said he did not sleep for 6 weeks because every time
Aw.
I got into the bed, he was like watching me like a hawk. So, but that was a funny story from something that was really, really scary.
But again, though,
But
like
you know.
that's support. Like that's
Oh,
that's one of your
whew.
people being like, "Hey, where are you? Let me check on you. Let me see what's going on." Like, "Oh, you're asleep. I'm concerned about how you're sleeping and if you're going to stay asleep." And I
And if you're not gonna wander around the house in the dark.
yeah.
Yeah. But he was really great. I think this stressed him out more than it stressed me because, I'm kind of stoic and philosophical about this. But when I saw the neurosurgeon in January, because I still was having daily headaches, and I was like, I'm not functional and I can't take my medication I take at night because it knocks me out. So I literally would just sleep 24 hours a day. He's like, okay, I'm going to give you a lower dose. And so I actually shared with him. I didn't tell this to anybody else. And if they watching this, they're going to now know. I told him, I said, some days I'm not okay, but I don't want to let them know because I don't want them to worry because it may be fleeting, it may be whatever, because as a whole, I'm okay. But some days I'm not okay. And he says to me, he said, and that's okay. And I was like, it's like I needed the validation
You do
because it
though.
wasn't a stiff upper lip, for whatever because I knew I was okay. But just some days it was just, you look in the mirror and they had to cut my jaw muscle. And now I have a dent in my head. You can't really see it if you're not looking for it, but I have a dent in my head where they had to remove some of the bone. And, I was looking in the mirror and, some days I would cry because I was like, I am a monster and I'm going to scare little children.
Well, when you don't
And
recognize yourself
it's
in the
like,
mirror, that loss of identity is so
yeah,
profound.
it is. But the problem is that what we are seeing is a projection of how we feel
Yep.
about the situation versus what is the reality. Because it's a funny story because I said, I'm sitting here and my head is shaped like Mr. Peanut. And he looks at me, he goes, "You had a peanut head before you had surgery." And I just busted out laughing because I thought that was the funniest thing, And I was like, "I
That's
did?
amazing.
Hannah, I'm going to tell you this. I had taken a picture the night before surgery in the mirror because I said, this might be the last time that I look like this, and I want to have a picture of it. So I did that, and then I took a picture, after surgery and on and on. And I put them side by side, and you know what I figured out? I had a peanut head before surgery.
Oh, that's like, it's hilarious, but I can feel that moment when you're just like, well, shucks. It's
Well,
right all along.
well, who the hell knew that? But I tell you what, the one benefit when you've been through something like this, and you can't see it now because my hair has actually started finally to grow in, but I have a scar that starts about here. It goes all the way around, and then it wraps in front of my ear. So it's a
It's a big
nice
one.
big scar. Yeah, it's a big scar. They don't put they don't put dressing on it except for the first couple days. So they take it off before you are released from the hospital. So after surgery, you have to meet with the neurosurgeon a couple of weeks later. So, and I can't see. I had double vision like you would not believe. So I'm, walking like I'm 900 years old. And Martin was a little bit ahead of me, and we were going into the building where the neurosurgeon's office is. And this woman was coming out, I guess, from a doctor's appointment. And she looks at me and sees this, and she has this like recoils in horror kind of thing. And I look at her with the straightest face, and I went, bar fight. And she was like, "Oh
Perfection.
my God."
Perfect.
She's like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "No, no, no, it's fine." I said, honey, isn't the guy should be out of the hospital in a few days, right? Because he shouldn't have said what he said to me."
Yep, there you go.
And so she scurries off, and was moving really fast, and I was thinking, "Don't leave me here. I got steps to navigate." So, I go in the lobby of the building, and he's basically doubled over, cracking up. And he's like, "You traumatized that woman." I said, "She shouldn't have stared at me like that. I already have body image
There you go.
problems." You know? But it was really, really funny. So, I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna use it. But I have to say, my surgeon was a genius because the stitches that he did were gorgeous. I mean, he did
Ooh.
such a job. And even the woman who I met in the hospital who works for him, she was looking at him. She's like, "These are beautiful." I said, "I know, aren't they?" And then I'm like, "Are those baseball stitches?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Sweet.
But it was, he did a beautiful job, but it was, and then I saw my dad, he's retired physician. So he saw him and he was like, "Oh, those look really good." And I'm like, "I know, right? I know, right?" So, everybody else is like, "Oh my God, what the hell?" But,
There's a big
but,
difference
but
between good and bad stitches, like huge difference.
huge, huge. But that was funny. And then one of the other funny things is Diane, who works under me for Design to Delivery, she came over and helped me wash my hair because I couldn't do it myself
Yeah.
because I couldn't stand in a shower. And at the time, but it was before we remodeled the house, so we had the bars from when his father was alive, so I could hold on to the bar while I would take a shower. But literally, I couldn't be left unmonitored in the shower. I couldn't, because balance.
Yeah.
And one time I leaned over to because I dropped my brush, and I leaned over to pick it up, and I didn't realize how close I was to the wall and hit my head
Oh,
on the bottom of one of the bars.
right what you don't want to
And
do.
yeah, because I think I basically saw the year 2097. I mean, I just fast forwarded into the future. It was like, whoa. And I came out, and he goes, "You okay?" I was like, "I hit my head." And I was
Kind of bonka
not even a
bonka.
month out of surgery. So
Oh
I
my
was like,
gosh.
"Oh no. Oh no." But, there's good stories. They're funny stories. And, if anybody is out there looking, listening to this or watching, sometimes we have to cry because that's that's valid,
Yeah.
100% valid. And there's this whole thought that tears are healing. That's why when you go to the ocean, when you're feeling kind of down, you feel good. It's the salt
Yeah.
and everything. Um, but some days you just have to laugh. Some days you just have to find the good. But for me, the good was being very, very clear when I finally went public, right at Brain Tumor Awareness Month, because I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, and even my business partner's like, I thought you weren't going to post. And I was like, it's time. It's time.
I love
Because
that.
I'd already said something good had to come from this. And I knew from a business standpoint, but I was like, you know what? There's a lot of people that don't understand what a brain tumor diagnosis does to someone and what it means.
Absolutely.
So there's misinformation, there's whatever. And since my birthday was coming up, I decided to do a Facebook fundraiser.
Perfect.
You know,
There you
I've
go.
I've I've done them, pretty much every year, and I usually do them for a women's business association. But this year I wanted to do it for the National Brain Tumor Society because they do a lot of really, really good work. So I figure, I'll just do $500. Um, 30 minutes later, I think it was at 1,250 or something.
Woohoo!
And I was like, "Ooh,
Let's raise
okay,
that
well,
bar.
let's make it 2,000." Well, a couple hours later, I had passed that, and I was like, "Okay, now we're just gonna go for it. We're gonna make it
Yes.
5."
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I was, by the time it ended, it was just under $5,000 that was raised.
My gosh.
And I was
That's
like,
amazing.
"Huh, this is awesome." I put it out and I shared the story and I shared the do's and don'ts of what to do and what to say to somebody who has a brain tumor. Yeah, please don't say, "Oh, well, at least it's benign." Don't say that. Please don't say that. We've already been through that whole thing, so I don't have to repeat
Still
it,
a
but I
tumor
just
in
think
my
it's worth
brain.
mentioning. Yeah. But just, all these things. And then I had a whole bunch of people who reached out and was like, "I didn't know." And I was like, "I didn't tell
Yeah,
you." I
there's a
mean,
reason you
how
didn't
would you
know.
know? I mean, if you did know, that means that you broke into my house and were listening to the conversation. So we might
Little
need to talk
Snoopy
about
Snoop.
that. Little Snoopy Snoop. But, it just it was kind of exhausting explaining things and I really needed to use my energy. And I had a very good circle of people. Even people I wasn't even that close to, but they had found out. People sent me, like, DoorDash, they sent oh, my favorite was the edible arrangements. I mean, who doesn't
Love
like
an edible
chocolate-covered
arrangement.
fruit?
My gosh.
One friend of mine sent me this box, and it looked like a house covered in snow, and inside had all these yummy goodies and stuff. Which was funny because since they cut my jaw muscle, I couldn't open my mouth very wide to eat anything, so I'm, like,
Because
trying
it
to suck on a piece
looks
of
so
chocolate.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, but on the upside, I got to eat a lot of Jello, gelatin and Jello pudding, and then finally, when I was able to kinda bite a little bit, I couldn't eat a lot of stuff, but for some reason, I could tolerate fast food.
It's funny how that works.
Not sure, because I was losing so much weight that they were
Yeah.
like, "You need to eat more." So my doctor was like, "Look, if that's what you can eat, then eat it." And I was like,
Don't have to tell me
"Okay."
twice.
Don't right? I mean, before you finish that sentence, I was on my phone on DoorDash. Yes. But there's side effects that come from the medication.
Mhm.
One of the side effects, and nobody can figure this out, I don't get hunger pains.
Which is good and bad. Cause
Oh, it's bad.
yeah.
It's bad because when you have memory issues from
Oh,
having
no, so you
surgery,
just don't remember to eat.
I don't remember to eat. So it was like, people would call me and be like, "Did you eat?" And I'm like, I don't know.
Maybe.
I there's no plates in the sink, so I would say probably no. And they're like, "Okay, you need to eat." And I'd be like, "Okay." Conversation over, gone out of my head.
Oh,
And,
no.
they're like, "Did you eat?" And I'm like, "I don't think so." And so then it got to the point, it was like, "Okay, I am on the phone. Put the video on and you're gonna go downstairs in the kitchen and I'm gonna watch you eat." I mean, it was literally that ridiculous. I still don't eat like I should because I still don't remember. and I don't get hungry, so whatever. But and radiation changes what you can eat. So me and cheese and dairy,
No longer copacetic.
but not for a long time. Now I'm starting to be able to eat it again. But it's there's a lot that happens. There's a lot that happens. And just some days you just have to go with the flow.
Well, I feel like, and absolutely correct me if I'm mistaken, I feel like two of the things that really strike me about your experience um, is that phrase, go with the flow, but also just support. Like,
Mhm.
and it's a big theme in your business, in the way that you help your clients. And it also just, it feels like there's just been this background energy in your life, and whatever sort of spiritual religious thing that you adhere to, or and I'm speaking to our listeners as well, whatever you choose to believe, like it really feels like your whole life has been preparing you for the next thing and the next thing, and that you've
Mhm.
you've had this really miraculous support in the background. and
Mhm.
and it just it strikes me so profoundly, and it just feels like you provide this beautiful support for the people in your life, and all the people around you, and just the situations around you have just been kind of carrying you, and they're like, no, you've got this, you're ready for this next step, this next thing
Yeah.
is, you're gonna be fine. And I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's just miraculous. I can't get
It's
over it.
interesting. It's funny because this what became Tripod August of 2022, just a few months after finishing radiation. I had been doing like informal business operations consulting for people. People would call me with their moments. I edited that for television.
Thanks.
Um, but those moments, they're like, you need to call Diana. And so that's what I find fun. People are like, business operations is fun. And I'm like, the way I do
It
it, it
is.
is.
Yeah,
I
it
make
can
I
be.
make it fun. I make it fun because a lot of the reasons it's not fun is there's not a lot of training on it.
Yeah.
People are getting trained on how to sell and all the revenue generating, the social media stuff, but people are not doing courses out there for scaling your business to be able to work in another state, or hiring people. Or what if you get that really big contract you've been going after? That's great from a revenue standpoint, but could focusing on revenue be killing your company? And that's one of the talks that I give, that talks about stuff like that. So it was to be able to talk about this thing. And I kept saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do this. Oh, I'm gonna open this business and actually, do it, because I really love this, and I love, design to delivery. I like what I do there. We have great employees. We have wonderful customers. But I've always said, this is missing. This could be something I could do." And it was like, "Well, why don't you do it?" "Well, I'm kind of busy. I'm kind of this." And I was like, having a brain tumor diagnosis, surgery, radiation, and seeing all this stuff, and then realizing, you know what, this is a huge gap for companies. It's huge. I mean, it could be the difference between a company surviving, even, not never mind growing, because a lot of times, they say, you probably hear people will be like, "Oh, if you don't go out of business the first couple of years, you're safe." And one of my friends, who's an accountant, she was speaking on a panel, and I knew that what she said intrinsically, but then she said it in a way that was much more concise, and that is, a lot of companies go out of business at year 5, and it's not because of revenue, it's because of cash flow.
Yeah.
And where does cash flow come from? That's on your operations side, and on and on. And I was like, I could really make a difference. So having this surgery and everything, radiation, that was the catalyst for me to get off my tush and make this thing happen. So people are like, "Okay, you did all this stuff and you opened another business?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Just
And they're like,
I
"What
just
is
went with
wrong
the
with you?"
flow. I went with the flow.
I went with the flow, but I really feel like I was chosen for this because my medical background, my business background, all of this stuff gives me the ability to talk about things with another level of authority. I had the experience and the skills and, I know my stuff. But when people say, "Well, why should I do it?" Then I can say, "Let me tell you a story."
I have this
you know?
experience.
And literally the what ifs can be strictly business related. Those are the ones that you can plan for because, those are like the known what ifs. But I'm also talking about the what ifs you didn't see coming, like a brain tumor
Yeah.
diagnosis or two. Or something else. It could be a chronic illness. It doesn't have to be something like this. It could be somebody with a chronic illness. It would like an autoimmune disease or some invisible illness because those are the worst ones to have because people when they find out they're like, "Well, you don't look sick."
This episode of the Warrior Stories podcast is made possible by Haka Life Nutrition. Haka Life Nutrition believes in a whole body health approach, from a strong mindset, making smart food choices, encouraging daily exercise, and supporting your body with quality supplements. Haka Life Nutrition produces quality of life supplements that support your joint health, support your muscles, keep your heart healthy, and keep your brain active. Head to hakalife.com/warrior to learn more and get exclusive discounts. That's hakalife.com/warrior. All right, now let's get back to the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, there should
Great
be an automatic
pointers.
buy to use language that's not appropriate for people under the age of 16. Yeah, that should be appropriate. But then you also might be a caregiver because, there's those of us who are older and our parents are older. So, caregivers, but now people are having strokes in their 40s. So you might think you're going to be a caregiver when your parents are in their 80s and 90s and, you're 50s and 60s. But all of a sudden you are a caregiver for your spouse or partner
Mhm.
in your 40s.
Yeah.
So you can't plan for this stuff. Sometimes you have a little bit of lead time, but the ones that come at you, that whole saying, and for disclaimer purposes, I'm not trying to steal a copyright or a trademark or anything. Life comes at you fast.
Oh boy, does it.
It's but listen to people who've been there before. Try to glean some information and some nuggets. And yeah, you're going to get some people who are going to be like, "Nope, you're effed," and there you have it. But then you have those of us who will speak plainly and be like, "This is scary to hear." But before you go into, have something like brain surgery, you need to make sure that your life insurance is paid up, that your
Mhm.
will is done so your estate
Just
doesn't
the
end in probate
practical
if something
things.
happens. Do you have a medical power of attorney? That's stuff that you don't want to think about because it's scary because you're saying there's a possibility I might not make it. But okay, can I give people a real, wake up call? You should have that stuff done anyway.
Yeah.
You shouldn't wait until you have to have surgery because you might go outside and God forbid a meteor comes down and hits you. But it's some practical information that can be used for this and bigger. But going back to what I was saying, I really felt like I got chosen and kind of, you know, God and the universe said, "You have the ability to do something with it. Are you going to do that?"
Oh, that's powerful.
I mean, really, really, truly, because when you look back over the last 30 years, everything in my life had been lining up for this moment. So when a friend of mine said to me, she said, "Do you ever ask yourself, why me?" I said, "Sure, sure." She said, "Yeah?" I said, "Yeah, it was 30 minutes. I was driving home from the office. I started to cry. I called my mom as I'm driving, and I remember exactly where I was. I was on the street right in front of the Naval Hospital in Bethesda, which is, where I live. So I was driving home and I called her for like 30 minutes and I was like, I don't understand what I did that made this happen. I mean, I think I've been a good person. I've tried to be kind. I've tried to be helpful. I don't understand why this happened. 30 minutes. That's all, and then all of a sudden I was like, well, why not me? Why am I more special than somebody else? Why would I say I shouldn't have it, but it's okay for that person to have it? Because they could be doing a whole lot more for the world than I'm doing. So why not me? And then that changed from why not me to, well, what can I do with this?
Mm.
So it was really quite an epiphany. It's really quite an epiphany. So, I got asked by another person, if you could go back in time and say, you have a choice. You can have this happen, or you can make the choice not to have it happen. What would you choose? And I said that it would happen. And she's like, really? After everything you've been through? I said, absolutely. And she said, why? I said, because it's changed me as a person for the better, you know?
I have chills. I have literal chills right now. I before we kind of bring everything to a close, I just have to tell you how incredibly grateful I am for connecting with you. Um, and you and me have had several conversations before this recording. I feel like you came into my life at such an important time for me. Not to go into a lot of details or anything, but like there's some pretty heavy stuff going on in my life right now. And hearing your story really helped me examine the stuff that I've got going on. And it helped me think about the progression of my life. And there's, we do have this choice of saying, why me? Why is this happening? And the more I think about it, and I tried to put myself kind of in that attitude that you have that's so beautiful, I was like, you know what? Everything that I've been through has prepared me for this moment.
Mhm.
I
Do
really
you remember
am.
what do you remember when we first connected, when I sent you the email and you said this is the thing that you're like, we have to talk? When
What
I
there were so
said,
many, honestly.
yeah, no, yeah, but this is the one, and I saw it on one of my support groups, and this is that whole where we have something, we come in as newbies, and then all of a sudden you go from newbie to being experienced, and then we reach back, and somebody posted saying, your story may become somebody's roadmap to survival. And I internalized that and said, my story might be somebody's roadmap to survival and hope. And it doesn't have to be this. It could be for, somebody whose family member is facing it. They're not experiencing it, but how do I support them? Or somebody who has a business. Because I have somebody I talked to at an event, and said, I talked to so and so, and they said that I should come talk to you. And I was like, yeah, what's up?
Let's talk.
I'm having surgery, and how did you do it? So we sat and talked. So the next time I saw her, it was after surgery, and I was like, okay, what's going on? How are you? How are you? She's like, I'm doing really well, but it's this, and this. And she said, I think I need to talk to you again. And I was like, absolutely, what's going on? She's like, I think I might be closing my business. I said, not till we talk, you aren't. I mean, literally was like,
Yep.
I don't even know details. You are not doing this until we talk. You may ultimately end up at that point, but
Let's exhaust all our options
you're not
first.
there until after. So again, I'm telling my story, which normally I wouldn't, but this is important. It's important for people to have hope. And it doesn't always end up the way we want it to, but the way I see it is it ends up the way it's supposed to. And then we figure out how we want to deal with that information.
Mm. This has been a balm for my soul. This conversation has been, and I hope it's been this for our audience as well, for any of you that are listening or watching. I hope you all take that attitude and that mindset, because there are days that you do, you ask why me. Everybody has those days. There are days that you cry, but there have to be days that you laugh, because laughter is just as healing as tears. And we have to just have a better mindset, and we have to keep going. And I think that's just one of the most healing things that I've gotten from connecting with you. And I'm going to be forever grateful for the conversations that we've had. So thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so
likewise.
much.
Likewise. This has been a two-way street.
Good.
I think we were supposed to meet because I wasn't even a member of the group when you had made that post. My business partner was, and she said, "This woman is posted. I really think you need to connect with her." So I joined the group, and then I had to look you up and sent you the DM. But we were supposed to meet because the things that you guys are doing with this podcast, there's so much going on in the world that is so hard on people, especially the last couple of years with having to retool how we have social interactions and see people and whatever, and all sorts of stuff. But to hear stories from other people, and we're just regular people. It's not like, it's whatever. I mean, we're the siblings and the children and the friends of, and even people you hate,
Yep.
that's who we are. We're all of these, but we're just people who are trying to do a little bit, our part to give back.
I'm trying to stay professional. I'm trying not to be trying not to be an emotional wreck. But if you've watched any of the episodes, you probably know that is not always the case.
Right.
All right.
That's okay.
Okay, my final two questions, and I feel like you've really already answered these, so answer them however you will. After going through everything that you've been through, how does it feel to be where you are today?
Oh, I'm just still on this journey, and I'm pretty proud of myself. I mean, right off the bat, I had confidence that, like I said, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And I was going to do my part in terms of doing research and homework and on and on. And I stood my ground when my dad was like, "You need to see this person." I was like, "No, I've chosen my doctors." And you don't understand. You don't tell my parents what you're not going to do. I'm almost 60 years old and I'm still like, "Okay, yep, mhm." But my mom even said to me the other day, she said, "I can't believe how you've handled this. I'm so proud of you." And that was
Oh,
like, oh my gosh, I'm like, ah.
yeah.
But I'm just really, really proud of the things that I've been able to do, even in a small part, to help people. Because when I went public, a lot of people was like, "Oh my God, my kid was just diagnosed with this. Oh my God, I know somebody was diagnosed. Oh my God, my kid had this 15 years ago." It gave somebody something relatable that was a little bit, I mean, we're not only an obscure diagnosis that keeps getting more and more people every day diagnosed with it, but like you said, I have a really rare tumor. So, it's just it's going to be interesting because I really, really do want to keep doing this kind of thing. I'm working with my reconstructive plastic surgeon. He was recommended by one of the oncology nurses because I was telling him, half my face is paralyzed. And he's like, "Oh, you need to talk to Dr. Nellis." And I was like, "Okay." Well, unfortunately, you told this to somebody who had brain fog from radiation.
Oh
So when I
gosh.
went back to say hi, he asked me, he said, "Did you ever set up an appointment?" I was like, I couldn't remember his name. He goes, "I'm setting up an appointment right now."
Mm,
So I've been working with Dr. Nellis, and part of the problem with facial paralysis is part of my face drooped.
mhm.
And my neurosurgeon said, "You should look into Botox." And I was like, "Botox? I mean, we're talking about something else here." Well, it turns out that Botox has more than just cosmetic.
Mhm.
So when he relaxed it, my eyebrows got into the same alignment. Hannah, I went home that afternoon. I looked in the mirror and I said, "There she is.
Oh,
There she is." It changed everything. So, in talking to Dr. Nellis, I was like, "Okay, how," he was telling me some of the stuff he's doing. He's doing clinical trials around facial paralysis. And I was like, "Okay, how can I help?" He is basically doing it out of pocket. I was like, we need to find you some grants.
Yeah.
So if anybody's watching, I'm working on getting a link. It's going to be put up on my didibble.com, DIDIBBLE.com website. I'm going to be doing things that I'm doing with nonprofits, and I'm working on them to get a link so we can have people donate. And it's only like $10,000, which is great. But then he introduced me to one of the partners in his practice who has a foundation that is building a teaching hospital in Ghana so they can have these surgeons and nurses and technicians in country because they're having to fly people in. So I'm working with them on trying to raise some funds for that. There is a building up, so working to raise funds for that. And then they introduced me to the cleft palate program, which has in all 50 states, but the one here in Maryland, they introduced me to them because Dr. Nellis actually works with them. And I'm telling him about everything I know about cleft palates and reconstructive surgery. And he's like, how do you know all this stuff? And I was like,
No big deal.
you'll get to know me. So I'm I'm trying to work with them to fundraise and do PR and raise awareness about it, because all of this stuff is reconstructive kinds of surgeries, but particularly with the face, because when we see somebody, we automatically make assumptions about who those people are.
Yeah.
And it's also how we feel about ourselves. So the fact that they're all doing this stuff, particularly with the face, is something that I really, really committed to helping, because it made a huge difference with how I felt about me. And I'm telling you, I had a meeting with one of my bankers and I put on a shoe with a little bit of heel, even though my neuro-ophthalmologist is like, you have depth perception
A little
imbalance.
one.
Don't do
Just
that.
a
You're going
little
to break your
heel.
ankle. And I was like, I can make a boot look good though. I'm telling you. But I walked to this meeting and I noticed I had like this kind of bounce in my step. And I told Molly's looking at me. She's like, what the heck's going on over there? And I was like, I have the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack playing in my head.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I'm very, very happy and I'm very proud of even with everything else going on, that that it's given me the opportunity to give back. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud
Awesome.
of
I
that.
think you absolutely should be proud. I think sometimes people are nervous to say they're proud of themselves, and I'm like, no, no, no. You are the first person who should be proud of yourself for something. Always.
Ding ding. Ding ding. 100%.
My
100%.
last question. I swear we're gonna do other things with our day. My maybe it's
Not
Friday.
today, we
We'll
won't.
see. Oh,
Not
ooh,
today.
you know what? You're right. Last question. What would you
Yeah.
say to someone who is maybe at the beginning of a journey that's similar to yours?
Take a breath. The second thing I would say is get a notebook and pen, because there's going to be a lot of stuff coming at you fast. Take notes, ask questions. If you are with a medical professional who doesn't want to answer your questions, that might not be the best person for you. You have to be part of the process. This shouldn't just happen to you. You should be involved with it. I mean, I would say don't get off of the bed and start having to try to assist with the surgery, because that's kind of weird. Although some people do awake craniotomies, so
Whew.
they really are assisting with the surgery. But the other thing I would say is get somebody who you trust. And it doesn't have to be your romantic partner. It doesn't have to be your business partner. It just has to be somebody you trust to be your safety net. And take these people with you to all of your appointments,
Yes.
because you're going to sit there and they'll say, do you have any other questions? You're going to be like, nope.
Blank.
Do you understand what I told you? Uh-huh. And you're going to get out as far as the car and be like, I don't have any recollection of what just happened over the last
Yep.
45 minutes. So that's why writing notes down. The other thing I would tell people, I have a background in doing research. If you do not have a background in research, do not go to the internet and try to Google things.
It's a scary place.
places. Yeah, and the thing about it is that some of the information is either old or it's incorrect or it may not be specific to your diagnosis. Because I remember my neuro-ophthalmologist, I said, well, I was doing some research on such and such. And he goes, you millennials need to stay off of the internet. And I looked at him, I said, okay, number one, I'm a baby boomer. And number two, I've been doing research at the National Library of Medicine, reading case studies. And he goes, oh, well, that's where I go. So it's
Yeah.
it's different. I know how to do this. If you do not have a background in this, please don't do it. You will terrify yourself. You will end up with perhaps misinformation. And even if you're in a support group, take it with a grain of salt that there may be something that somebody's, saying what they recommend. Number one, don't take recommendations from people on Facebook.
That
You
goes for
can for
everyone.
places to eat, but not necessarily medical advice, especially if it contradicts maybe something that your physician said because they have a bigger picture. Doesn't mean you can't ask the question, but if somebody says, "Oh no, you can stop taking that medication. It's going to cause long-term problems," or "No, you should take this medication." No,
Mm.
that's not a good idea. But I will circle back to the first thing I said is take a breath and then also allow yourself to feel whatever feelings you are feeling. So if you want to cry, cry. If you want to have one of those laughs that people kind of look at you like, "Oh my gosh," do that. Just allow yourself to feel and then allow yourself to ask for help. And the last most important is that you determine who knows what about your journey. So if somebody finds out from somebody else and you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to talk about it.
No.
You don't have to talk about it. And if you have to edit your friends because of this, because some of the people you thought would be there might not be, and some of the people you had no idea might be the ones that are lockstep. So don't be afraid to edit your friends.
I think that is shockingly important. And
Hmm.
I think it's such a hard thing for people to kind of approach, but it is wildly, wildly important.
And don't feel bad about it,
Yeah.
because if somebody tries to make you feel guilty about it, now I have funny conversations with people, and one of I spoke on a panel in California at the beginning of February, and somebody asked a question, and I went through this long explanation and I said, so hopefully, I explained this and it makes sense. And if it doesn't, I had brain surgery, so you have to give me a bye. And they thought that was the funniest thing. So, I make fun of myself because some days, especially early on, I developed a stutter.
Mm.
And it was almost like the synapses were trying to reconnect. And I had very bad aphasia, which is, if you guys know about this whole thing with Bruce Willis with his aphasia, it's like you're almost trapped in your brain where you can't talk. And I could see the word in my head, but I couldn't get it out. And I was on a meeting once and I was trying to explain something and I kept stuttering, trying to get a word out, and I couldn't get it out. And in front of all these people, I started to cry. So now I'm embarrassed. So they were like, okay, number one, don't be embarrassed. Cause they were like, what about this word? What about this word? Which was making me more frustrated because they were trying to be helpful. And I happened to mention it to my cardiologist about still having this problem. He goes, write it down. I said,
Oh,
write it down. He said, it's often a
yeah.
disconnect between your brain and your mouth, but your brain and your hand are connected. So you can write the word even if you can't say it. And he said, and then read the word. And I was like,
What
oh
a
my gosh.
practical solution. My gosh.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take it a step further though. How many people walk around with pen and paper all the time? Not all of us, right? Write it on your hand.
That
So
is
you're
so clever.
visualizing it because my mother used to write in air and then she was like, "Oh, that's not right." And I'm like, "She just erased air. What the heck?" But all these years later, so now if I'm having problems with it, I'll write it in my hand and it helps with the connection and it helps reduce frustration.
My gosh. See, this is why you need other people who have been through things or just who have expertise because there's stuff that you just wouldn't think about. And so having that
Mhm.
kind of support, whether it's from friends or medical professionals, whatever, That's the good stuff. That's what it's all about. My gosh.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. And don't give up hope. That's the last thing I want to say. People are like, well, it's kind of hopeless. You know what? 2 things. Number 1, when you take your last breath, then, there's really nothing else that can be done at that time. You tried everything or whatever. And the other thing is we don't have expiration dates stamped on the bottom of our feet.
There we go.
So, there's always hope, and you get to determine what that means. Don't let other people tell you, well, there's no hope. You know what? There's always hope.
There is.
It may be little, but they told my mother in 1991 with her cancer, she had a very, very rare cancer. And they basically, I thought she had 2 years. My brother told me, all these decades later, he's like, no, they told her 6 months. I was like, again, I keep missing stuff. What is it? Just goes right past me. But she's still here. And she's had cancer, I think, like 4 more times or something. She's still here. So again, there is like, it had already spread by the time they were able to figure out what was going on. And, people were like, nope, she's basically. So yeah, we were just like, nope, we're not dealing. Nope, that's not what's going to happen. And she's still here. She's a pain in my butt some days, but I love her dearly.
I love that. All right, let's end on hope. Let's always just come back to hope. I love that so much. Yep. Diana, thank you so much for being here with us. I think you've already given us a little bit of information, but is there anywhere else that people can find you online?
Yeah, actually, Linktree, and I can never spell it right. I think it's linktr.ee/tripodccllc. And all of my links in there for social media, the website, all of that's in there. I think you said it's going to be in the description.
I will make sure to put it in the description.
So, because sometimes I say things and people are like, what word are you trying to say? And I'm like, look, I had to get braces again because my jaw was so out of alignment. So give me a break. I stutter, I lisp, and now, whatever. And today is a numbers day, not letters day. So it's fine.
We'll figure it out. We'll get there in the end.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, so links will be in the description. And that wraps up this episode of the Warrior Stories podcast. If any of our listeners or viewers are interested in learning more about any of our warriors, be sure to head to hakalife.com/podcast. And if you or someone you know should come on our podcast and tell their story and share their information, comment down below if you're watching on YouTube, or email us at warrior@hakalife.com. Thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, do all the things. I hope everybody has a beautiful, beautiful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.